Venerable monks, Upasikas. So already I gave a talk today before the meditation, which was more like a basic teaching, but many of you are new, so I thought I will touch on the basic teaching as well. But we should also not forget that actually there is nothing like a basic, in the Buddha's teaching. The basic itself will take you to advance, right? Which means that today I mention about the action, Action is always going to be there from beginning till the end, right? So, but still, it is also can be called basic because there are some of these things are more of a more of a um, more kind of external, you can say, right? Because I spoke about action, uh, our mind, and more specifically, speech and body, So therefore I spoke. So now this is a little bit deep, this sutta, but it is also like a meditation. It can be used as a meditation, and it can also be used as some tool, like a tool for managing our mind. Today there is a lot of talk about managing. Everything is about managing companies, managing home, so also managing oneself. So this is the development of the faculties. So how do you develop your faculties, which means your spiritual quality? How to develop the spiritual quality? So Buddha was staying in Kajangala in Bamboo Grove. There is a place in Kajangala. Then the student Uttara, a pupil of the Brahmin Parasariya, approached the Buddha and exchanged greeting with him. When the greeting and polite conversation was over, he sat down to one side. So there was this one student, Uttara. He was a student of one Brahmin teacher, Parasariya. He comes to Buddha, and then he had meet Buddha and have some kind of a basic conversation about how are you, all of that. So and then the Buddha asked him, Uttara, does Parasariya teach his disciple the development of the faculties? So Buddha asked this Uttara, and Uttara was not disciple of Buddha. He was disciple of a Brahmin, one Brahmin teacher. So he asked him, does your teacher Parasariya, does he teach something about development of faculties, Indriya, that is developing your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, these six senses, because these six senses are also called Indriya, Indra, like the Indra Devata, that is the god of Sakka, Tavatimsa. So also our six senses are also Indra. It is a power. So our eye is power, our ear is power, our smell and taste and touch and thought. These six senses, they are power. They are power. So does it teach something about it? So he said, yeah, he does. So he said, Vardhi Gautama, it's when the eye sees no sight and ear hears no sound. That's how Parasariya teaches disciple the development of the faculties. He says that you don't see anything, right? You basically, to protect your eyes, you don't see anything, right? Or don't see anything. Oh, if you see something, you will get negative, right? Or don't hear anything, then you will not get any negative, right? This is what his teacher was teaching. Then Buddha said, in that case, Uttara, a blind person, a deaf person will have developed faculties according to what Parasarya says. For a blind person says no. So he said, in that case, so if you don't see, don't hear, then even the blind people or deaf people, they have, they are powerful. They have developed their mind. Is it so? This is what Buddha is asking him. Then when this was said, he was totally silent, because what Buddha is saying is that you can't, just because you see something get negative, doesn't mean you don't see any, right? You can't stop, right? You can't close your eyes. You can't close your ears. Right? So the problem is not in the eyes, the problem is not in the ear. The problem is somewhere else, or the development is somewhere else. So this is what the Buddha says. So then Buddha says, then there was Ananda Bhante beside. So he asked Ananda Bhante, one monk, Buddha's personal attendant, he asked, is quite Ananda, the development of the faculties taught by Parasarya is quite different from the supreme development of the faculties in the training of the noble one. So Buddha said, my way of teaching to develop our mind is different from what this Brahmin is teaching, right? So there is some technique is different. So then Ananda Bhante requests Buddha, and then the Buddha says this, so there are three different kind of practice, or you can say level of practice. The first one is, and how Ananda is there, the supreme development of the faculties in the training of the noble one. When a monk sees a sight with their eyes, in them arises what is agreeable, what is disagreeable, and what is both agreeable and disagreeable. They understand what is agreeable and what is disagreeable, and what is both agreeable and disagreeable have arisen in me. That's condition, crude and dependently originated, but this is peaceful and sublime, namely equanimity. Then the agreeable and the disagreeable and both that arose in them cease, and equanimity becomes stabilized. It is like how a person with clear eyes might open their eyes and shut them, or might shut their eyes then open them. Such is the speed, such is the swiftness, the ease with which anything agreeable, disagreeable, and both that arose in them cease, and equanimity becomes stabilized. Okay, so what Buddha is saying is that when we see something, right? When we see something, we like it or we dislike it, or we both like at the same time dislike. Both can happen, right? Because it is pleasant or unpleasant, or both pleasant and unpleasant. So what Buddha is saying is that when this is the only thing that will happen. So you're aware, right? First of all, you have to be aware. I'm liking it, I'm disliking it, I'm both liking and disliking it. That awareness must be there, right? So then what you have to think? That's condition. Oh, it is condition, which means it is dependent on something. It is coming because of so many different causes and condition. So you know that it is you are seeing something, you are feeling something. It is not independent. It is dependent on so many things. So that's what you know. And then it is very crude, which means it is very kind of very rustic. It is very rustic because whatever you see are generally quite. It is quite, you can say, strong, right? You see something, then you may like it very much, or you may dislike it very much. So there is some kind of a strong impression is there, right? You see something, you really like it. Oh, you really like it so much, and then something you might not like it. You might not at all like it, right? So it is so strong. It is strong. It is very, very rough, and dependently originated. So it is dependent on so many things. So whatever you see, it is dependent on so many things. So, but how it is dependent, you only have to think, okay, for example, I'm saying some this, and I'm liking it, but it is, the thing that you're seeing is happening because of so many different things. For example, you are watching movie. When you are watching movie, you know that it is coming because of so many, say, so many shooting, writing, camera, and makeup, and so many other things, right? So just like the movie, you try to, whatever you're seeing, you try to understand that it is made up of so many things. It is dependent on so many things. Then what happens when you think like that? Then your mind becomes what? Equanimity, right? Your mind is equanimous. So you are not liking it too much. You are not disliking it too much. You are somewhat balanced. Your mind is somewhat equanimous, right? So also with the ear, whatever you hear, smell, taste, touch, and think, right? So you do like that, right? So first of all, you know how you are feeling. How you are feeling. Are you feeling pleasant or unpleasant, or are you feeling neutral, or both? So this is the initial training. So all of us who are not yet enlightened, who are not achieve any stage of enlightenment, this is what we have to do, right? So when you kind of, it's like a dissecting, right? So when you dissect thing that you hear and see, you kind of dissect it. You kind of you can say, you try to what do you call, kind of disassembly, right? You are disassembling it one by one. Then there is nothing to so much so much like it or dislike it. So you are equanimous. And so also sound, like when somebody says something, you are disturbed, so you can just think about it. You can just analyze it, you can just dissect it, you can just break it apart, break it into different segment, or you see how that is coming, how that sound has come, how it has arisen, how it has come to be. So you see all of that, the story behind that, how it has come to be. So when you see all of that, then there is no more liking and disliking. You are just equanimous. Your mind is just balanced. Basically, you are not disturbed. You are not too excited. You are not too disturbed. So yeah, there is example which is giving. So he said, just like the when you're opening your eyes, you can close your eyes, right? And you're closing eyes, you can open yours. So that fast, you should be able to bring that equanimity, right? That fast, you have to bring it. Just like I can open your eyes, close. But there is we will have some amount of what do you call? We will have some amount of disturbances, but then we quickly, just like closing and opening eyes, we come to equanimity. So also he gives example for other ears and ears as well. What example he gives is for the ears. It's like how a strong person can effortlessly snap their finger. So just like one strong person, a very strong person, he can just do very fast like this, can do like this. Within that, you come to equanimity, equanimous mind when you hear something. So also nose faculty. So nose faculty is like Buddha give, like how a drop of water would roll off a gently sloping lotus leaf and would not stay there. Such is the speed, swiftness, ease. So like a lotus flower, if the water goes there, it just moves away very fast. In the same way, when you are smelling something, so you are not again, you don't get so much, unpleasant, pleasant, all of that. You come to quickly to the equanimity. Yeah. So also tongue, the tongue, whatever yours. So it's like how a strong person who is formed a globe of spit on the tip of their tongue and could easily spit it out. Such is so just like somebody spitting out fast, taking the thing in the tongue and just throwing it out. In the same way, whatever you are tasting, so you are not agitated by the taste as well. You come to equanimity. So also body faculty. So your body, it's like how a strong person can extend or contract their arms. Such is the speed. Like somebody doing their arms, folding it or taking it out. So in the same way, whatever you're feeling, you come to equanimity. You don't get like and dislike. You don't get agitated. You can do distracted, right? But how do? You feel it, and then you know the causes and condition. So you reach to such stage, you have to reach to such stage, then only you will be able to enter into the stream of nirvana, into the stream of enlightenment, wherein it becomes natural. So now the mind. What is the example the Buddha gives about the mind? It's like how a strong person could let 2 or 3 drops of water fall onto an iron cauldron that has been heated all day. The drops would be slow to fall, but they would quickly dry up and evaporate. Such is the swift. So in the mind, if you have any kinds of thought and that would kind of gives you distraction or whatever, so you just like somebody throws water on a heated kind of a heated tawa or something, it will just spill over, it will just evaporate and it will fall away. In the same way, you come to that stability, right? Remember last time when Ajahn Jayasaro came, he was also telling that, right? In the sense that until you achieve nirvana, until you achieve enlightenment, you will be pulled and pushed by your experience of life through the 6 senses. You will get disturbed, you will get agitated, but with the practice you will quickly come to the equanimity. Equanimity is it's not like a neutral thing, because it's a stability of mind. It is it's a peaceful state of mind. Then comes practicing training. Somebody who is let's say somebody who is a Sotapanna, somebody achieve by practicing like this becomes a Sotapanna. Sotapanna is first stage of enlightenment. For them, how it happens, so when and how they are practicing training. When a mendicant sees a sight, hears a sound, smells and or tastes a flower, a flavor, feels a touch, knows a thought, the agreeable, disagreeable both arise in them. They are horrified, repelled and disgusted by them. That's how they are practicing training. So when they are in the first stage of enlightenment, they are whatever they are experiencing, they are feeling horrified, repelled and disgusted. So which means they see all the experiences and they naturally don't get involved in the experience of life, which means they are naturally not at all become agitated, become disturbed, or become attached to the experience of life, which is the 6 senses, right? So it's just naturally kind of come to them, and that's how they are stabilized. And then somebody who is fully enlightened, arahant, fully enlightened, what happens to them? And how are how are they a noble one with developed faculties when a mendicant sees aside so also all other senses, if they wish? May I meditate perceiving the unrepulsiveness in the repulsive? That's what they do. May I meditate perceiving the repulsiveness in the unrepulsive? That's what they do. May I meditate perceiving the unrepulsiveness in the repulsiveness and the unrepulsiveness? That's what they do. May I meditate perceiving the repulsiveness in the unrepulsiveness and the repulsive? That's what they do. May I meditate staying equanimous, mindful, aware, shunning both the repulsive and the unrepulsive? That's what they do. So now somebody who is an enlightened person, right? So what they do is, whenever they also have experience just like us, but what happens is they just perceive the unrepulsiveness in the repulsive. So something which is repulsive, is something which is very unpleasant. So they see something pleasant there, which means they, something that they don't like. I explained about people today before the meditation, that you hear some unpleasant words from people, and then what I told, you have to at that point think about goodness, right? So that is you bring in that, right? So this is what they do, enlightened people, they do. So also, if something is pleasant, they also, something pleasant in the sense something that is kind of bringing attachment, then they see the opposite of that which is pleasant, right? So also, they meditate like that. May I meditate perceiving the unrepulsiveness in the repulsive and the perceiving the repulsive. So both, they see both repulsive and unrepulsive in something which is unrepulsive, and like that. And then they perceive the repulsive in both unrepulsive and repulsive. So what to put it simple, they are, they bring in the perception of you can say something which is pleasant. They bring the perception of unpleasant also, right? So for example, Buddha mentioned about meditating on death, which is important. But why you do that? When you are too much kind of when you are say not valuing your life, you are not valuing your time, so you meditate on death. You meditate on death. So what happens? Then you start valuing your time. You start valuing your life, right? So also, sometime when you are little bit, you are too much afraid of the life itself, right? You are in the sense, especially death, right? So what you do, you practice metta, what today Bhante mentioned in the last. So that way you bring in the equanimity. So what they say, may I meditate staying equanimous, mindful, aware, shunning both repulsive and unrepulsiveness. So you go beyond this perception of pleasant, unpleasant, right? You go beyond that. So this is what the practice is, right? So to put it in a very simple, way, I can say that whatever we are experiencing, whatever pleasant, unpleasant we are experiencing, we have to make sure that we are maintaining an equanimous mind. Yeah, just remember this equanimous, right? Equanimity, right? Equanimity, we call it upekha, so you maintain that stability. You can call it stability also to make it very simple. You maintain that stability of mind despite being disturbed, being dragged, being pulled and pushed, and whatnot, right? The crazy life, if you may say, right? You are kind of a very much, you know, had the life, what life does sometime to you, it pulls you, it just does something like this and throw you here, throw you there, isn't it? This is what the life does to you. So I think in simple word, to maintain that equanimity, right? So different thing. One. Now I'm summarizing, because it may be a little bit complicated to you. So this is what we have in our life, right? We are being pulled and pushed and whatnot, all kinds of experiences. So whenever we have that, first we know that we are experiencing like this. First, knowing is very important. I'm feeling pleasant, I'm feeling unpleasant, I'm feeling both. Okay, I'm feeling it. This is a feeling I'm going through. But then we don't just stay with the feeling itself, right? If you just stay with the feeling itself, then what will happen? You will be into that feeling, and that feeling keeps coming back, right? So you are just at the level of feeling. The feeling will go, again it will come. It will go, again it will come. You are not above the feeling. You are somehow controlled by your feeling. So what Buddha is saying is, you just, whenever you're feeling, first you know you're feeling like this. Try to see, try to analyze, you can so to say, right? Try to dissect, try to, just like, when the doctor does post-mortem to the body after we die, right? Everything like this, what happened, how. Something like that, we just dissect the situation. We just, see all the causes and condition and all of that, which Buddha gave in the beginning, because we are more beginners, so we look at the beginning, right? So what Buddha says is that, he says that is condition, crude and dependently originated. It is dependent. You may be aware of dependent origination, right? Everything is, you cannot catch anything, right? Everything is dependently originated. Our life is dependent on so many causes and condition. So you see the causes and condition, and by the way, you will not see one cause, because there will be so many causes and condition. So when you dissect, or when you open all those, try to know and see all those causes and condition that has led to this experience, then there is no kind of attachment to any feeling, whether it is pleasant, unpleasant. Because we are attached to both pleasant and unpleasant feeling. It's not like we are only attached to pleasant, but even unpleasant feeling we are also quite attached, right? So we do like that, and then we maintain equanimity. We maintain, which means stability. And as you keep that, then what happens? So Ananda, I have taught the supreme development of the faculties. In the training of Noble One, I have taught the practicing training, and I have taught the Noble One with developed faculties out of sympathy. So Buddha said different level. First of all, this about how you maintain that stability by seeing the condition. How every experience is so much of causes and condition. Then of course you are eventually you enter into the stage of training, which is Sotapanna, and then whenever you have experiences, you don't get caught in it, right? You're just free. You come to stability quickly. We all speak about stability, isn't it? Stability of mind. I want to be stable. I want to be balanced. That's what we talk about. And today, Buddha is showing us the way to how to do that, right? So that is very important. And this is a practice that we can do in meditation as well as in our own day-to-day life, right? So maybe, I think it is simple also, but some of you may have still some doubt also, because there are some how to do and all of that. But it's okay. You can, how much you understand, you can try to practice and in meditation as well as in our day-to-day life. So eventually we become stable, right? So when we become more stable within, then we like perfectly stable, right? Then that is enlightenment. That is when we are completely stable. There is no instability. Just like Buddha mentioned, Yathinda Khilo, Pataving Sitosiya, just like a big pillar in the Khila, like Ashoka pillar, like that, in the ground. So you are just like unmovable, So you become stable. So I think what is important is we become totally stable within ourselves, so that we are not disturbed, so we are not agitated in our life, right? So this is the teaching for today, for you to think and contemplate. So today, as I mentioned, is a special day. Also, on this day, Buddha announced the Mahaparinibbana. He announced that after 3 months he is going to pass away. And then Aggasavaka, Buddha's two chief disciples, Moggallana Bhante, Sariputta Bhante, they were conferred with the title of chief disciple. You see the two statues here. So the right side Sariputta Bhante, left side Moggallana Bhante. So today is a full moon day. It's a very special day. So all of you have come to the Vihara on this special day. So you have listened to Dhamma, done puja, meditation. So it's a great punya, wholesome deed. So this will be helpful this will be blessing for all of you. So with this, we conclude, and all the monks give a blessing to all of you. Bhavatu sabba sambha bhavantu te bhavato sabbamang rakhanto sabba devata sabbadham sada sote bhavantu bhavato sabbamanga rakhanto sabba devata sabba sanghanubhave sada sote bhavantu te. By the blessing of Buddha Dhamma Sangha, by the blessing of today's punya, may you all be happy, healthy, peaceful and joyful. May you all be free from harm, danger, sickness and worries. May all your wish be fulfilled. May you grow in Dhamma. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.